Hi, Katie North here from North Financial Advisors. Today I'm chatting about how to take a sabbatical. Back in 2015, before I started my business, I chose to take a several month-long sabbatical, and I used the time to really just have quiet, unstructured time so that I could sit and think and explore without too many responsibilities, without too much to do or too much to achieve. Some of the things that made my sabbatical successful are: one, is that I had enough cash. I had enough cash to live for at least 3 years to cover my expenses, because I knew that starting a business was going to be part of my journey. I wanted to make sure I had enough startup capital. I wanted to make sure that my personal expenses would be covered not only during my sabbatical, but also while I was ramping up an eventual business. And so for me, I was glad to have that cushion, because it meant that I didn't have to act out of desperation to try to get clients to try to take the next thing. So I definitely think that if you're considering a sabbatical, you need to figure out how much cash you need, and that's going to be a key to your success. The fun thing about a sabbatical, though, is that you need to allow yourself unstructured time and time and place to be creative. For me, that meant not having a schedule during the day and taking time for walks, taking time to connect with people that I hadn't spoken to in a while. And a lot of that was for fun, for socialization outside of the workplace, right? But eventually, as I got closer and closer to coming out of my sabbatical, that creative time and that time spent talking to others was real market research and learning from other people about how they took the path of becoming a business owner and starting their own financial planning firm. And so I definitely think that you need to allow yourself some unstructured time and plan to focus on creativity, but it's not necessarily something you have to force. Creativity starts to happen in the background, and I think you'll find that with that unstructured time, you'll start solving problems that you didn't even know needed to be solved. The final tip that I'll give is you're gonna have to learn to get comfortable in the uncomfortability. It can be really uncomfortable, and it was for me, to be without a job, to be able to even tell people I'm taking a sabbatical, because in our society we're so focused, so driven on what we do, what we're achieving, what we're managing, how busy we are. And so when we don't have any of those things, we kind of wonder, okay, now what do we talk about? Now what do we do? And so it can be uncomfortable at first. And when you start to reach a place where you start to feel comfortable with that, I think that you'll start to have a much more productive and fruitful sabbatical, so that you can kind of use it as a playground, really, to explore what your options are when you finally do come out of your sabbatical. The sabbatical eventually will have to end, right? And a lot of us, when we're thinking of a sabbatical, we think just a purely in time of start to finish, but what we don't realize is that there might be a ramping up period between when the sabbatical officially ends and when we are job hunting, planning to start the new business, ramping up the new business, or moving into some other aspect of what our next gig is going to be. And so going back to the idea of having enough cash, right? We need to make sure we leave ourselves a little bit of a runway for that, because if you don't have a plan for coming out of the sabbatical, it can make things financially rather difficult. Check out my blog post. I dive into all these points in much more depth. I also share a lot more of my story and how it was for me to take my sabbatical. And so hopefully all of this will be really helpful and interesting for you if it's something that has been on your agenda to take a look at.